Hello everybody and welcome to this What's New in ForNAV 6.2 webinar. I'm Jan Sillermann and with me today I have Jakob, I have Michael and I have Renee, so it's more or less the full team. And what was originally supposed to be a minor release, ForNAV 6.2 actually turned out to be somewhat of a major release. But before jumping into that, a couple of householding things. So one is that this recording or this webinar will be recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel later today. The other thing is that if you have any questions, please use the questions tool in GoToMeeting. And if it's something that is absolutely necessary to answer right away, we'll do so. But otherwise, we will take the questions at the end of this webinar. So with that, let's jump into it. And let's start with an overview of 6.2. Of course, we have now support for Business Central 19, which is now 19.3. We have for a while have had direct print capabilities, but these have been significantly improved with ForNAV 6.2. And that also includes that we can now do direct print of RDLC and Word reports. So you can actually use the direct print feature without using a single ForNAV report. We'll come back to that. We have also got strong input about email body layouts for sending out invoices and so on. And people really wanted the option to be able to build these layouts in the ForNAV designer. That's now possible, and we will of course show you that. There has also been a lot of feedback regarding print to Excel from Cloud, and that we can do now as well. And then there has been a number of improvements to the report pack, as well as throughout the the converter and especially the designer tool. And finally, we have focused on improve the parity between Cloud and On-Prem. We have always strived towards having the same products, and we are very, very close today. There are a few technical differences that require us to have some differences, but apart from that, it's really the same product, whether it's Cloud or On-Prem. You might also have noticed that we now have a fourth pillar on our story. We of course have the report pack, which used to be the standard report, but now again aligned with the cloud version, so it's the ForNAV report pack. We have the ForNAV designer, we have the ForNAV converter, and now we also have the ForNAV direct print as one of our pillars. But let's start with a look at what happened in the ForNAV report pack with 6.2. So Renee, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jan. So yes, we've made several major and minor improvements to the ForNAV report pack. Most notably, we've added a couple of reports. By special request, we have added an invoice with a QR payment part specifically for the Swiss market. This report was requested by some of our Swiss partners as the standard Microsoft report was too hard to modify. We have also added a sales return order and a service contract quote. These were also requested by several partners. You may have noticed a while ago Microsoft has moved away from extension permission sets and has moved to extensible permission objects. So since ForNAV 6.1, the report pack already came with extensions to the D365 Basics and the D365 Business Premium permission objects. And that gives most Business Central users permissions to use ForNAV. In this release we have also created an assignable user, direct print and admin permission object. By request, we have improved and fixed the customer statement report, so it will print an email from the customer card without any errors. And finally, we've made many small improvements and bug fixes. You can find a full list of these in the version history on our website. And as always, if there are any reports or features you would like us to add, please get in touch with us. So let's move away from the slides and into a demo. I'll show you some stuff that is nice to see. Now we've moved to my screen. So in this demo I will demonstrate the new permission set and the Swiss QR report. So for the permission sets, I'm in a normal standard Business Central sandbox. I've installed ForNAV, the ForNAV customizable report pack, and not much else in here. So that means that if I open my permission sets, inside these permission sets, if I scroll all the way up, you will notice I have a D365 Basic and a Business Premium. And if I look at these permissions, these will hold a number of permissions for the Business Central base app. But if I filter this list by the ForNAV object range, which is in 6 million, you will notice that the ForNAV report pack has also added the permissions to use the ForNAV report pack to the D365 Basic, and like I said, also to the Business Premium permission set. So for most users, permissions to ForNAV will be added automatically. If you don't use the D365 Basic or Business Premium permission sets, you can still use ForNAV without too much hassle. Because we've also now added the ForNAV Admin, the ForNAV Direct Print service, and the ForNAV User permission sets. And if you look into these permission sets, for the user, for instance, you will notice that it only has permissions to use the ForNAV report pack, and the admin has the permissions to administer the ForNAV report pack, and nothing else. So you can assign these manually or randomly to your users. To do this, let's say I have a user that I want to make a ForNAV admin. I can simply open my users, and in my user, for instance my test user, I can assign a new permission set. And if I filter on ForNAV, I can find my ForNAV admin permission set and manually assign it to my user. And that will make this user has the D365 Business Premium permission set, but that will also give this user permission to administer ForNAV. So that's one of the changes that we've made inside ForNAV. And those of you who have used ForNAV for a while, you may remember that we had permission sets for every ForNAV extension. So we had one for the ForNAV core, for the report pack, for the direct print, for other things, and all of those have now been merged into these three specific permission sets. So that should make your administration a lot easier. Then for the second part of my demo, I'm going to switch over to a Swiss sandbox, because I would like to demonstrate the Swiss QR report. Now the Swiss QR report is only really applicable for Switzerland because it contains some very specific things for the Swiss banking system. But I'm going to demonstrate it anyway because it makes use of some very cool new QR barcode features that we've developed specifically for the Swiss market, but are available and useful, I think, for customers all over the world. So the Swiss QR report is just an invoice or an invoice attachment that will print a barcode, a QR barcode, plus a number of bank information fields, so you can pay your invoices easily and automatically. So in order to set this up, you need, like I said, to run these reports a Swiss sandbox. It doesn't work in any other report in any other sandbox. And if you have the Swiss sandbox, then you also have the Microsoft Swiss QR extension. And in this Swiss QR extension, you have the QR bill setup. And the QR bill setup, like I said, is just a standard Microsoft field available in the Swiss localization. In here, you need to set up some things like the address type and the umlaut characters and QR IBAN and all that sort of stuff. Once you have that set up, then you can start running your QR invoices. Now, like I said, the QR bill comes in two flavors. If I go open my report selection sales, let's move over to the invoice, you will notice that I have a Swiss QR invoice and a Swiss QR bill. I've enabled them both for this particular sandbox so I can show you the difference. And that means that when I print just a random posted sales invoice, and preview, I get a report that is at the top completely the same as all of the other ForNAV invoices. We have the header, the lines, and that sort of stuff. Underneath you may have VAT, but at the bottom, instead of the normal report footer, we have the Swiss payment part. So on the right we have the payment part with the barcode, with a bunch of fields that are really specific to the Swiss banking system, and on the left we have the receipt. And you may notice that in here we have a barcode, and this barcode has something new to ForNAV, and that is an image in the middle. Now, like I said, we added this specifically for the Swiss QR report, but you can use any image that you would like, so you can add your own logo to your barcodes. If I read this barcode with my barcode manager, you will notice that this barcode, I'll just copy the data, it's quite a lot, and paste it in Notepad. You will notice that this barcode has a lot of information. All of this information is of course necessary in order for the Swiss customers to make their payments. So that's the QR invoice, and of course if I cancel this one we still have the QR bill. The QR bill is an invoice attachment, and that doesn't print the invoice, it just prints the footer with the Swiss payment part. And you can use this as an attachment to your warehouse shipment or your invoice or any other report. So just because I know you're all curious, let's go and have a look at this Swiss QR bill. Because like I said, to make this work we had to make some changes in the QR barcode. So in here in the QR footer you will notice we have the receipt, we have the payment part, we have all sorts of fields that are filled with the specific data, and in the middle we have the QR code. And if I look at the properties of this QR code, inside the symbology you will notice we have a new field called logo, and in this logo you can upload any bitmap. Of course it needs to comply to some rules, it needs to be square and some other things. But if you have a bitmap that's valid, you can embed it inside your QR code, and when you run the report, ForNAV will render the barcode for you. So that's about it for the report. Back Jan, back to you.
Thank you, René. So let's move on and talk about Direct Print, the new pillar on our story. And maybe some of you attended our webinar last week where we went somewhat deeper on the Direct Print stuff. That webinar is available on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go deeper on Direct Print, you can do it by watching that webinar. But we still thought it was relevant to give an overview at this What's New session for everybody. So what do we mean when we talk about Direct Print? What is the customer scenario we're looking at here? And a good example is a warehouse. You're probably all aware of the fact that when using the web client, whether it's on-prem or cloud, when you do print, you always get a PDF as a preview, and then you can print that PDF to a printer or whatever way you want to print it. And that's fine if you're sitting at your PC, but if you are moving around, for instance, in a warehouse and moving around boxes, and you need the packing list, or you need picking list, or you need labels, you simply don't have time to go to the PC every time and press print on that preview. That is slowing down productivity significantly. Same thing if you are in a cash register, you just want the receipt, you don't want this extra effort of printing or touching the print button to get the print. And there are probably hundreds of other examples where this fact is sort of slowing down productivity. We have solved that by basically extending the standard Business Central functionality. So you already have tables and forms for printer management and for printer selection. The problem is that they still go through the PDF previewer and then print it. And with our feature, you are sort of skipping that extra process. And also very importantly, ForNAV Direct Print support printer attributes like which kind of paper, which paper source, whether you want to do duplex and so on. But it's very easy to install, it's very easy to set it up, and it's very easy to use because we are taking advantage of these standard features that are already in Business Central. Also from a cost perspective, there are several solutions today that can handle this, but some of them, and particularly one of them, are rather expensive as it's based on usage, which basically means that every time you print a page, you will get a bill for that. Now with ForNAV, this is included in all ForNAV licenses, so you don't have any additional cost, and you don't have any cost based on usage of this feature. And also very importantly, this supports both ForNAV, RDLC and Word reports. So even though you don't want to use any ForNAV reports, you can still take advantage of the direct print feature simply by installing ForNAV and using it with RDLC and Word reports. And finally, when we look at security and the secure environment, there are also solutions out there with different kind of email printers. So you basically send your print off to an email address, and that email address sends it back to your printer. And that's fine. The only problem is that you, in many cases, you have no idea where the print goes between you sending it off and getting it back to your printer. And there are examples out there of organizations grabbing this print, changing, for instance, the bank account and sending it back to the printer, which basically means you never get your money because they'll be sent to a different account number. And the other thing is, in particular, if you work in the EU, you need to have a data processing agreement in place with this email service provider, because you are sending off information to this third party. With ForNAV, as everything stays within Business Central and Azure, you don't need that. But let's switch over to you, Jakob, and see how this works in real life.
Thank you, Jan. Can you see my screen?
We can see your screen.
Perfect. Okay, so in this demo, I'll show you the basic principle of the direct printing. So the problem, as Jan said, is that you have your Business Central running in the cloud or on-premise, and you only have the browser as an interface. But your printers are connected to machines locally, maybe a print server somewhere or a computer on your desk. So in this case, I'll show you a local printer here. This is just a printer queue for a local printer. In this case, it's simply it's a PDF printer, and I put the printer queue on pause so that you can see what happens in the local printer queue when we print from Business Central. So before we can print anything from Business Central, I'll just show you how we handle this. On Business Central, we have implemented a print queue, and the print queue is as it says, it's a queue of print jobs that has to go to a local printer somewhere. So whenever you print, the print job gets to this print queue, and then it's picked up and sent to a local printer. But in order for us to tell Business Central that a particular print job must go through this print queue, we have to set up something that we call a direct printer, and the list of direct printers is here. In here, I can define a new direct printer, and I'll call this one my PDF. And I will tell it to use a printer service that is running locally somewhere on my network, maybe on my printer server. and I will tell it which local printer I want this to go to. So now I've set up a printer to use, and when I use this printer, it will send the jobs to the print queue instead of showing this preview of the PDF as you normally see. So what if I want to use this on my reports from now on? Then I have to go to print management, printer management. This is part of normal Business Central, and as you can see, now I have my PDF printer here, and I can manage that and set that as the default printer for my reports or my users. So what this actually does is that it adds a row to the normal printer selection table. Okay, let's try to actually do a print. And as Jan also said, this works with both ForNAV and RDLC and Word reports. So let's just take report number 1, which is the chart of accounts, and do a print of that. As you can see, it's selected the My PDF printer. So when I click print, the report is run and nothing else happens here. But if I bring up my local printer queue, I can see that there's one job waiting to be spooled to my local printer here. So let me just show you again. If I do like a split view of this, now we have the printer queue on one side and we have Business Central on the other. And I want to run the report. Then you'll get a feeling of the speed of this. Report number 1. This is the speed of Business Central, but now I will click print. The report is generated and it takes a little while, then it shows up spooling to my local printer. So that was pretty fast. Let's go back and have a look again. So now I can go to my print queue and see what's happened. So in my print queue, I now have 2 jobs. I can see that both of them are finished, which means that they are sent to the printer. I actually have a lot more status information in here, so I can go and debug if anything goes wrong. If I have paper jam or something else, then I would have another message than just finished. I would have an error message in here. I can go and I can restart a job if I want to print it again, or I can inspect this printer queue. I can even download it. If I click download, I simply get a PDF file with the print job that I'm looking at. So there are lots of debugging possibilities in here. So right now I'll not go into the how this works. There's more about that in the webinar on YouTube, where you can find more information about how it works and how to set it up. It's actually pretty easy. It doesn't require any additional printer drivers or anything like that. So back to you, Jan.
Thank you, Jakob. There are 2 alternative configurations of the direct print. One is the client print, and the scenario here is if you have a larger number of users who only have their own local printer. Example could be people working from home, or it could be service technicians driving around with a printer in their car. You have the option to use this client print, which is basically a small program you download on the local computer, and then it will look after print jobs and print them directly on that local printer. The other option is the server print for on-prem only, which basically means that you can set up print to any server printer. And that's especially relevant if you use RDLC and Word reports and you want to send them off to a server printer and you don't want the setup that Jakob just described. So with that, let's move on to some of the other things that are in ForNAV 6.2. And another important area is the email body layout. So Michael.
Thank you, Jan. So for those of you who have tried to work with email bodies, ForNAV, you know that on Prem you had to mix our reports with a Word report, and you basically get 2 request pages. And even though on the cloud version that was easier to do, you still have to create your own email bodies across all these document reports. So what we created is something that's built into the report pack, and also if you haven't set up email bodies already, we'll simply install them for you in BC, or if it's a new version, we'll simply install it from scratch. But let's go and see how this looks in real life. So let me change the presenter here. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Good. So the problem in the old days was that you would have to use this report selection sales, and you will have more sequences in here. A lot of people had issues, including me, on figuring out which checkbox to set. But this is the default layout now. You can see this is the ForNAV report, and it runs on a email body layout. And if I go back to the order page in here, I can simply go and do print and send, and then say I want to email this. And now it runs a report in here. There's an attachment, and down here you can see the email body. In here there's something that you call a salutation, and then there's the body text, and then a message from me, and some extra information down here. But of course, everybody wants to modify this because this is the signature of your company, and you want to do something special. So if I discard this at first and then go to the design, I can go to my order now and say layout, and I want to design my email body layout. Now it starts the ForNAV designer in here. And it sort of looks like the normal order report. It has some master sections. You can see that it has a document header here. But instead of the normal header, it points to the email body template. It's a message part, and down here we have the footer with the signature part. To make this flexible, we have introduced a couple of new functions. So we have a function called get salutation, and basically what this does is, depending on whether this is an order or an invoice, it picks up the sell to contact or the bill to contact automatic in here, and then it looks in the business central salutation system, which is the one that figured out if it should be Mr. or Mrs. or so on, depending on the language and a lot of other things. But this is a built-in feature we simply piggyback on. Down here, this is an experimental text box in here where you basically can put in a text, and this can be changed from the ForNAV language module. So an end user can go in and put in a Christmas greeting, or change this to be a longer text, also with other values from the report than just the name of the document and the number. So to keep this flexible, we have used our template technology. Of course, you can go to the email body template and change this, but you can also break this loose and do a special layout for the order. So all the flexibility you normally have in the report pack is here, and you can simply just edit it. But that's basically it for the body layout. So let's move on. We have a lot of other exciting things in here. So if I just go back to the PowerPoint. We have also improved the parity between Cloud and On-Prem. So now we have a universal app. So the Cloud report pack also run on-prem, which is sort of confusing, but Jan will go into details with that. A lot of people have asked for print to Excel, and the problem before has been that since we piggyback on the Word format for the cloud. We couldn't do that, but we have found a way to do this. On-prem, we now have support for custom word layouts to support the email bodies, and also since the Docker images you get from Microsoft is multi-tenancy, we now support multi-tenancy for on-prem. And also a long-standing wish is that whenever we do new versions, you don't have to reconvert. So with 6.2, if you install the current 6.2 that we have released out there, if you later want to upgrade to 6.2 or you have a box fix that you want to put in place, then you simply install the new version, and your initial 6.2 implementation will then start running on the new DLL without reconversion. So now we have parity between Cloud and On-Prem, that you don't have to do a lot of things to upgrade. You just have to install the new version, and everything will be automatic underneath without you having to do any additional work. But let's go and look at the print to Excel. So if I can find a way back to the browser. So now this is a BC19 sandbox we have here. And if I go and say I want to print this, then as I said before, you cannot print to Excel. You can print the data in here, but not the actual Excel document. So if I just do cancel in here and do this again, print confirmation, and then instead up here, I select a special printer we have created up here. So if I choose Excel ForNAV and do print, I simply get the Excel spreadsheet. And for those of you who never seen this Excel layout, it's actually pretty close to what you see in a normal PDF in here. So if I zoom out, it's very hard to see the difference between the PDF versions and the Excel version. But if I click on this, you can see this is actually cells in here that you can work with. Also, let me just demo the new option that you also have in BC to print the data set instead of just the Excel sheets with the layout. So click on this and do print, then we get a spreadsheet with the data from the document. We have chosen to do this a bit different than what Microsoft is doing. In Microsoft's version of this, you have a flat data set, and the problem with the flat data set is that you get all data from all records in all rows. And if you want to do totals, you have to clean this up to get it to work or work with it at all. What we're doing is that we have created a hierarchical data set in here. As you can see, there's a line with a header. Of course, this is a thin demos data set in here, but you get the header and it stops here. And on the next line, next row, there's the line, and additional lines would come down here. So you can basically go in and do totaling across the different lines in here without cleaning anything up. So this is a lot cleaner. And also, if you are a non-English speaking customer, then these captions will be in your local language instead of English up here. So you can actually also see what these guys are. But let's have some more fun and look at additional features in here. Actually, there's one feature that's not mentioned here, is that Jakob has created a dark mode for our JavaScript editor, which underneath is the Visual Studio Code editor. So he decided that it was cool to have this dark mode as well, instead of it being all white. But beyond that, we have added JavaScript 6 support. We had 5 support for a long time, but now we are completely up to date with all the features from JavaScript 6. We have improved the rendering quality of the Word and HTML output, and it's also much faster than the new version. As you saw, Rene demoed, we can now embed bitmaps and QR code, which can also be useful outside Switzerland. We have added a lot of new productivity features in the design, and most notably it's the drag and drop functionality, which I'm going to demo. As I showed you, you can print the dataset to Excel, and we have also improved the Czech translation in this version, and also added Polish And actually now you can download the ForNAV report pack to any language. If it's outside the 20 languages we support, you get the English version, but at least you can get it for any local installation. And then we have done a ton of improvements and enhancements across the designer and converter also in this release. But let's go and look at the drag and drop function and see what we added here. So in this case, I'm going to let's take the cloud version. Really doesn't matter. They all work the same. It takes a while for the cloud version to wake up, so I'm simply going to take the 19 on-prem version. So let's say I want to go and change the customer list also to include a list of sales orders for each customer. So first of all, I need to have a new data item, and I can simply drag this in and drop it on the customer data item, and then I can add a new table in here, and we automatically figure out what's the data item links between these two records in here, so I don't have to think about that. So now we can see we have the new data item in here, and now I can simply add controls to that. So before 6.2, you would basically have to go and create new sections and then drag in tables for each of these sections. But we have done some improvement in here, and I can simply go and multi-select by using control. So I take the number and the amount, and then I can drag them. If I drop this on the sales header while I press shift, I simply get this small menu in here. Say I want to have a header and body section. So see, now I have a header section with my captions up here. I got a body with the number and amount, and then down here, since we detect that we use amount, which is a total field normally, then we add a footer with this field in here. And if I click on the sales header, you can also see that this is amazing. So in here it should have added the calculated field, but I did a mistake. I took the number and the amount from the customer. I took the wrong branch. So, but we have some time, so let me just delete these. And fortunately, it's very easy to do this. So instead, I will take the header, take the number, and multi-select the amount as well. And now we have the correct fields in here. So I simply press shift when I drop it, and then I got the sales header instead. And now I'll go back to what I wanted to show is that we detect that you have dragged in the amount. So we calculate that automatic, and also since we use this in a total on the footer, this is also put in. So I could clean up the heading and so on and make it prettier, but I'm just going to do preview to see how this looks in real life. So if I can find something that actually has some data on it. See down here I have the number, which probably should have been right aligned in this example with this demo data. But I got the numbers down here on my sales orders. I got the amounts and the total down here. So the whole concept is that we have we're keeping to extend this concept of not having to use columns and use fields instead to use on your reports. And then we have this complete drag and drop experience where you can simply put things together in an incredible fast way. Also, in here you can see that I have simply added this to a layout, which is just data. So I don't have to change my AL code and add new columns all the time. I can simply work with layouts. And in the ForNAV report pack, you can simply go and export these layouts into a zip file and then import this with the customer. So it's very easy to move around, and you don't have to deal with installing new extensions and figuring out where they are in the world. You simply work with layouts, and that's the only thing you have to deal with. Again, the upgrade of this is simple. So once you have these layouts in here, you simply can upgrade the report pack from one version to another, and that's the same on-prem. Your layouts will keep working, and you'll get new functionality when we ship that over time. I think we should go back to Jan and look at some of the conclusions.
Thank you, Michael. Cool demo, cool stuff. So I guess you see my screen again. So I hope you recognize that we have done a lot across all our pillars with 6.2, new improvements in the report pack, direct print, the email body, the print to Excel, and all the other things that that Michael showed. So before jumping to the Q&A, there's one more thing we like to mention. Recently, Microsoft announced the Universal Code Initiative, which basically means that solutions from ISVs or partners that are designed for cloud and optimized for cloud, they are preferred. And again, this is no surprise. We know Microsoft has a cloud-first strategy, and of course, we fully support that. And the Universal Code solution means that these solutions are able to be deployed on Business Central Cloud or online, on-prem or privately hosted environments. So basically, customers can choose where they want to and how they want to deploy this. Now, in plain English, this also means that that Microsoft want everybody to move away from DLLs, and starting for some solutions in 2023 and for some other solutions in 2024, Microsoft will require a new granule that enables solutions that still are using a DLL. So some people also refer to this as a DLL tax from Microsoft. Now, the good thing here is that our strategy is to follow Microsoft and Business Central, and we are already there. So of course, our cloud solution, which is based on an online service, that's Universal Code, and so is our on-prem solution, or we have an on-prem solution that is Universal Code. We did that a while back because we wanted to be able to support the Docker scenario, and we gave it a very clumsy name, something like customizable report pack cloud for on-prem. Now the good thing is that we have renamed that solution into Universal Code on-prem, because that's basically what it is. So the story here is that ForNAV has full support for Universal Code initiative, both cloud and on-prem, but we have also decided to maintain our DLL solution and still support our DLL solution moving forward, because there are customers who still benefit from running that solution, in particular all those customers who have upgraded from Classic. Many of them are not ready to move to cloud yet, and we want to make sure we still support them. So the short story here is we have full support for Universal Code, but we will also still maintain our DLL for as long as we can see ahead right now. Michael, anything you want to add here?
Oh, I think it's a fantastic explanation.
Thank you. So let's move on to the Q&A. Jakob, do you have an overview of that?
I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there are some questions, not a lot, so please type in your questions now. We will be happy to answer them the best we can. So Rainer is asking if a company located in Germany has to put QR codes on their invoices if they send an invoice to a Swiss company. And I think, again, this is a legal question, and I don't think any of us has the exact answer for this. But since this is only part of the Swiss location for BC, I kind of assume that you don't have to do that being a German company. But but I think you should get your advice somewhere else. Michael and Jan, or maybe Renee, do you have any input on this?
As far as I know, you don't need to you only need to provide the Swiss QR code if you have a Swiss bank. But like you said, I'm not entirely sure, and don't take my word for it.
No. Okay, then Tommy is asking, are the features you are showing available in Business Central 14 on premise? And the short answer here is some of them are and some of them are not. I know for the direct print, then some functionality is available in BC14 and some of it isn't. Most of it isn't actually. But so in BC14 on premise, you can using the DLL edition of the report pack, you can print to any printers connected to your service tier already. So, Michael.
Yeah. So basically, on 14, there's some events that we are piggybacking on is simply missing. So the direct print service that Jakob showed will not work on 14. You have to use server print or you need to use the cloud print. And the printing for RDLC and Word simply doesn't work either on 14 because the event that we use for that is not available. Same thing with the email bodies. The functionality is simply missing for everything up till 17. So it only works for 19, 18 and 19. So we tried to backport it as far back as we could, but there's simply a lot of stuff you cannot do in the older versions. But the rest we showed is available on 14 as well, Tommy.
And then Daniel is asking, could you provide further information about the email layout, how the email layout are set up and designed? And he tried this for one of our reports and was told that since it was RDLC format, it could not be used for email. Do you want to answer that, Michael?
So you need to have a word layout for email, and that's why we now support custom word layouts for on-prem. So to do these email bodies, we simply supply you with a set of word layouts that you use for that. But that's completely new for 6.2. Didn't work for 6.1.
And Perry is asking, we want to get started, so how do we get access to a sandbox with the solution and test and training? So
should I take that?
Yeah, yes, please do.
So you simply create a standard sandbox in Business Central, and then you go to the App Store and you download the ForNAV app, and then you are taken through a setup of that. And then if you go to fornav.com/training, there are two options there. There is a guide that can take you through how this works online, and there's a link to a very nice company called Red and Bundle, which, by the way, is owned by Renee. And they also offer, or they offer additional online training. I think it's for non-developers. I think it's 3 times 2 hours. Is that correct, Renee?
That's correct, Jan.
Yeah. And then on top of that, there's a ton of information available on our YouTube channel. So that's a very nice link to this slide where you can learn more. YouTube, ForNAV reports, we have what we call coffee breaks, which are 10 to 15 minutes videos with typically just one topic. So if you're looking for something specific like how to add a new or an extra line on your sales invoice, that's a topic you can watch this 10-15 minutes video, and then you should be going. And there are also a lot of other information there. And if everything else goes wrong, you are always welcome to write to support@fornav.com, and we will do our best to help you. That was a long answer. It's not that complicated, but I just wanted to cover everything.
But the short answer to, and also in addition to this, the short answer is get the customizable report pack from the App Store.
Correct.
And then if you want to play around with the direct print, you also need to download and install the ForNAV installer from our website, because it has the parts that you need on your local machine to get access to the print queue and send the print jobs to your local printers. And Perry is asking again, and we are looking for the report designer. The report designer is also part of what you get when you install the program you download from our website. So it's the same parts that you need. You need the customizable report pack, and you need the installer from our website. That was all the questions for now.
Okay, so while giving people a last chance to ask further questions, we have this how to learn more slide, and I already touched on most of it. But just to summarize, support for Business Central 19, the direct print stuff, including support for printing RDLC and Word reports, so you don't need ForNAV. The email body layout, which should make it much easier to create and maintain your email and your email body. Print to Excel, which has been a very high request with a number of partners for a long time. Enhancements to the report pack, some for Swiss customers, but certainly also some for a lot of other customers, including the customer statement that has been improved and so on. And the improved parity between Cloud and On-Prem and all the other cool stuff that Michael showed us. So again, it's available on AppSource. The designer and the direct print stuff needs to be downloaded from fornav.com/download. And I can only again recommend our YouTube channel, which contains a lot of nice videos taking you through all these different topics. I see a new hand, Jakob. Is that a new question?
I don't see any new questions.
Okay, so maybe it's an old hand that I see. Okay, it just showed up here as somebody raised their hand. Good, seems like we have no further questions. So let me end by saying thank you to Jakob, Michael, René, both for presenting and for developing it. And of course, thank you to all of you for joining and participating today. And as mentioned earlier, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel later today. So with that, I'd like to say thank you and have a great day.